Welcome, everyone. This is my analysis of Sprain, which is a solo I wrote over the chords to Chick Corea's Spain. Remember, this is a chord tone solo, so the only notes that I'm using here are 1, 3, 5, and 7 for each of these chords. So let's do a breakdown. We start with this phrase right in here, and it sounds like this. So that's our opening idea, our opening motif. And we're going to develop it. We're going to develop it by repeating it with a subtle variation. This is basically the same thing, same notes. We have this, looks kind of like a B minor arpeggio or triad right there. But of course, this is the 3rd, 5th, and 7th scale degree of G major 7. So my first phrase and my second phrase use the same notes, but let's take a look at the difference in rhythm. So we have okay, so the rhythm is slightly different. We have more syncopation in here where we're starting on the and of 1 with that very first note. That F sharp is the and of 1. Here it's starting on beat 1. So again, subtle rhythmic variation, but very effective. All you need is that little change to keep things fresh while still have it feel coherent. So we have a good amount of repetition here. I'd say 90% repetition, 10%, or maybe even 95% repetition, 5% variation. So it doesn't take a lot of salt to bring the meal to life. Okay, so we're going to use the same idea going into our third phrase right in here, which kind of actually starts with that pickup right there. And again, very similar rhythm to what we just did. So if we take a look at the first measure, same rhythm as what we have here, and this little measure right in there, same as what we have there. So the rhythm is exactly the same between phrases 2 and phrase 3. Keep that in mind. Again, a lot of repetition, but of course the notes change. Why do the notes change? Because when we go to the F sharp 7 chord right here, we have to make the notes, we have to adjust the notes so that they fit that chord. So instead of that B minor triad, we're going to go to this F sharp major triad. So I'll play the first 3 phrases. Okay, you can hear all the repetition there. Now, how do I know what notes to play on the F sharp 7? Well, again, it's just the chord tones, but if you notice, I'm using something that I call melodic voice leading. Again, that's melodic voice leading, which is similar to conventional voice leading, but melodic voice leading applies to single note lines. We don't have stacked chords here. Now, when I play it like this, that's a stacked chord. That's a full triad right there. But when I'm arpeggiating it, that's a single note line. So that's the difference there. So what we're doing is we're going from this triad, if I stack it together, to this triad. Now that's really good voice leading. What do I mean by that? Well, I'm barely moving the notes to fit the new chord. What's this F sharp? That's a common tone. It's the 7th scale degree on G major 7, and it's the root on F sharp 7. Now, the C sharp and the A sharp obviously don't fit on G major 7, so that's why we're moving, or I should say rather, the D and the B don't fit on F sharp 7, so that's how we need to move them down just enough to fit the new chord, which is F sharp 7. So this is voice leading here, and usually this is applied to playing piano or guitar or arranging for an ensemble, but we can use it in terms of single note lines as well, which is why we're going from here to here. So a great exercise that you guys can do is don't even worry about rhythm for this particular exercise. You can just pick a triad or a shape of a chord using just chord tones and then voice lead that shape through the chord progression. So let's use another example. Let's just use 2 notes now. We're going to play a G major. Okay, this is the root in the 3rd. Now, how would we voice lead this to get to F sharp 7? Well, first question we have to ask is, are there any common tones? Meaning, do either of these notes work on F sharp 7? Not really. So we need to adjust them just a little bit. Well, where is the closest chord tone to G? That's F sharp. So we're going to move that down. Where's the closest chord tone to B? Well, that's A sharp. So we go down like that. Now, you could also go up to C sharp, which sounds kind of nice. It's not as close to the A sharp to B. What I'm saying here is that when you go up to C sharp, you have that whole step there. When you go down to A sharp, you have a half step. So technically, this is the closest interval, but a whole step up is not too shabby. Anyway, keep that voice leading in mind, and that's a great exercise for you to do. You can create some really amazing chord tone solos using that technique. Let's keep going now. Phrase 4 gets kind of interesting in terms of the rhythm. So up until now, we're not terribly syncopated. When we play this rhythm, for instance, right in here, we have ba 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 ba. So we're landing on that beat 3 right there. All of this right here, this is sort of a pickup. Da 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 da. And we're pointing towards that C sharp on beat 3. Da 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 da. This is a downbeat. Da. Another downbeat. Da. And then this note up here, this is syncopated. We're emphasizing this offbeat here. But for the most part, we are playing quite a few downbeats, or emphasizing quite a few downbeats. Emphasis is what syncopation is all about. If you're emphasizing downbeats, it's not as syncopated as emphasizing upbeats. Okay, I point that out because in the next phrase, we're emphasizing almost all upbeats. Let's erase some of this so you can see. Okay, so the first note there is an upbeat. That's the and of 1. Then we have another upbeat, another. By the way, these arrows, I'm not pointing to these notes. I'm just indicating that these notes are upbeats rather than downbeats. Then we have another upbeat. And then finally, we emphasize these 2 downbeats. So this is the 4th phrase, much more syncopated than what we've heard thus far. Let's compare phrase 3 to phrase 4. Okay, here we go. Starting from measure 5 at the beginning of the second line. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me sing this with a click. Measure 5. 1 da 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 da. Lots of syncopation here. Same notes, just a much more syncopated variation of those notes. Now when we go to the next phrase, we're doing more voice leading. So we're going from this triad on the F sharp 7 to this triad on E minor 7. This is just an E minor triad in second inversion. What does that mean? Well, if we arpeggiate the E minor triad like this, that's root position because the root is in the bottom of that voicing, the bottom voice. First inversion, all we've done here, we took that E, we put it up the octave. You can do this on any instrument, by the way, but it's nice and easy to see it on the piano here, which is why I'm doing it on the piano. But this is first inversion, and then I take the bottom note again, which is G, and put it on top of the chord, up the octave. So now we have second inversion. So that's the arrangement of those notes that I'm playing on the E minor. Why? Because I'm coming from this voicing here. And I'm barely moving my hand to get to this voicing. What's each voice doing? Well, A sharp is going up to B, C sharp is going up to E, and F sharp is going up to G. So if I were to just play the chords for everything that we have so far, this was the basis of the first phrase. Then we go here. And then we go here. So when you just play them as chords, there's very little movement. All of the action is in the rhythm and the repetition and the variation. Now, let's continue on to this A7, this phrase here. Let me erase so you can see. Now we have a pickup. This is that E minor chord again, but now we're in first inversion. So the beginning of this line, measure 9, we have this. And then same chord tones again, right? This is now 3, 5, 1. We're not even using the 7. Sure, it's an E minor 7 chord. That doesn't mean you have to play the 7. There's so much you can do even with just triads. In fact, that might be a good exercise, is to limit yourself to just the triads and don't even worry about the 7s. But let's keep going. So we have this pickup. Again, no 7 there. This is A major triad. Okay, now we have the 7 right in there. Now what I like about holding off on that 7 until the end of the phrase is we don't introduce movement until the end of the phrase. What do I mean? Well, when we just play the A major chord, that's a pretty stable chord. Now when we play the 7, the flat 7 there, that G, now the chord is less stable. It indicates we're going to be moving somewhere. In this case, we're moving to D. So what I'm saying here is when I hold off on using that G until the end of the phrase, I don't introduce the instability until the end of the phrase. I don't signal that we're going to be moving somewhere, harmonically speaking, until the end of the phrase. And this is a technique that I'd like to use, especially in a blues. So if you're playing, let's say you're playing an A blues, and you're going from an A7 chord to a D7 chord. Okay, so you have A7 for 4 measures. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. And then you go to the D7, the 4 chord. What you can do is improvise using whatever you want, the A major triad or notes from the A major scale or A major pentatonic scale, but don't use the flat 7. Don't play that G until the very end of the A7. Because what that G does is it signals that we're moving to D7. Okay, so let me see if I can demonstrate this. Let's say we're playing an A blues. 1, 2, 3, 4. So right there, that G, ba-ba-da, that G is leading us to the D. Do you hear the tension introduced by that flat 7, by that G? When I withhold it until the end of the phrase or until the end of the line, it does a nice job of signaling to the listener's ear that we are about to go somewhere else. We're about to change chords. All right, so that was a long explanation for this G right in here, but I think it was kind of a nice tidbit. So let's keep going. So we eventually resolve to D major 7, and this is where things cool out a little bit. We've had a lot of activity rhythmically. Let's clear it out completely. All of this, a lot of activity, and finally we give ourselves a chance to rest, to catch our breath. And in fact, this entire line is much less active than what we've heard thus far. So you need to balance what you're doing in your solos. You can't always have a crazy amount of material. There needs to be a balance, a chance to breathe. And this is what we're doing here on this this 4th line down. So if we take it from measure 9 right there, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. It really gives us a chance to relax. And harmonically speaking, these chords are much more relaxed as well. We have all of these dominant chords. We have the F sharp 7, we have the A7 here. In fact, this chord progression right here is just a 2-5 aiming towards that D major 7, which is the 1. So it's a 2-5-1. And when we arrive harmonically, we also give ourselves a chance to chill out a little bit. So that's what we're doing in the melody, or the melodic component here of this solo. All right, but then we pick it back up again with measure 17, or the pickup into measure 17. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Alrighty, let's take a look at the shape. So we have this. This is a C major triad, 3rd, 5th, root, 3rd on top, going to this shape right here, more voice leading. Very little movement. C sharp is our common tone. Everything else moves just a little bit to get us to the F sharp 7. And going back to that principle I discussed earlier about the flat 7 being used as the leading note that leads us into the new chord, well, that's what we have here. We're playing that flat 7. That's the B, that's the flat 7 for the C sharp 7 chord. And then the same thing happens here. The E is the 7 of F sharp 7. And that leads us into B minor. So measure 21. It's basically the same thing. It is the same thing. Rhythmically, very similar. It's the same. The only difference, I guess, is there's this pickup here. But if we just ignore the pickup note and we focus on the meat of the phrase, it's the same thing. We just have to adjust the notes. So this D right here does not work on a B7 chord because it's B7 has a major third. And look, we just raise it a half step. The D becomes a D sharp. We go from here to here. It's not rocket science, guys. Just get into the habit of voice leading your arpeggios, and your solos will sound so much better. Okay, so this part right in here, kind of a cool little take on a montuno. Montuno is that thing you hear a lot in Latin music where you have the, this kind of a thing like... Okay, so that's the classic piano rendition of a montuno, which you would normally hear. But in this case, I have a single note montuno. But let's continue. Going on to this part right in here. This is F sharp 7. So we have... It's kind of a fun rhythm, but also I'm jumbling up the chord tones in a more interesting pattern than just going... which is not a bad line, just going down like that. But when you go, so I'm going up to the nearest chord tone, then I'm skipping down. So I'm skipping down over the third there. This is right in here, by the way. Let me erase. Okay, so here's what I'm talking about. We have the, if we just take it from this A sharp, that's the third. We go up to the C sharp, that's up to the nearest chord tone, and then we go down, we skip down to the 1. We skip over the third, which would be right in here, Okay, and then we go up to the nearest chord tone, which is A sharp, and then we skip down to the 5th. So what we have here is a pattern. We're stepping up to the nearest chord tone and then skipping down over a chord tone, landing on the next nearest chord tone. So skip up, or step up rather, skip down, step up, skip down. That's the pattern there. Now this line does something kind of interesting. Check it out. The purpose of this line is actually to get us into a new register. So I felt like we've been stuck in this lower register in a lot of this particular section. So I wanted to start to break out, get to a little bit of a higher register to amp up the energy. If you want to make something sound more energetic, more climactic, it's obvious that going higher will help you achieve that goal. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm doing a sort of this grand arpeggio. Just chord tones, no, and just to try it again, no dominant 7 yet. Right, just up. And then I've introduced the flat 7 there. Okay? A lot of space in here. Similar to what I did in this line, where I start to chill out a little bit. That's what I'm doing here. You can see a lot more space. Balancing out the activity with some rest. Literally, we have rests in here. All of this and all of this. A lot of rests. You can achieve that restful quality also with notes that are held out, which is what we have going on here. These notes are being held out. It achieves the same outcome. But we have 1, 2, 3. Same thing. 7 down to 5. Then we have 5 down to 3. But what's really important is that we're going from here and then just shifting up to here. This is more voice leading. Now, could I have gone down? Sure. I could have done this. 1, 2, 3. But that's, I said before, I want to start to move up a little bit with this line right in here. So I don't want to go down. I want to keep going up. I'm trying to build some energy here. I'm trying to get to a climax for this solo. So we're going up. And then we do it again. Now you might expect it to do this. I'll take it from, this is kind of nice. We have this page turn in here. Okay, so this is where you might expect the line to go. So we have, in fact, let's start it from over here because we start with this third right here. This is the C sharp and the A sharp. Okay, then we shift up. Then we shift up again. And then you would expect it to go here, which would sound fine. We could do 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. But even though that has a nice sequence to it, has some repetition, and I talk a lot about repetition, the other side of the coin is that too much repetition, it becomes predictable. So I feel like doing this is too predictable, which is why instead we do something different. We do this. So we're going here. Now notice we're still ending up where we expected, but we're getting there in a way that's a little unexpected. Instead of, we have, there's a little bit of a release there. In fact, when you have a lot of repetition, you're building tension, believe it or not. And then when you break the repetition, you provide some release or some relief. Going on, now we finally hit our climax here. We've got our highest notes of the solo, this high D. And the shape of the line is similar to what we just played. It's that third. Same thing we had. And now we're up here. And in fact, we're going to continue that down. We're going to go. Now this is just more of a pickup. So if we ignore that in there for now and we just focus on this, we have that third again. So we've really developed this idea here that we started and then repeated again and again. This is the slight variation right in there, but we've gone back to it and then used it for multiple measures. Now, one other rhythmic thing I want to point out that's kind of cool is starting in unexpected places. So this emphasis on beat 4 is a little bit of a curveball. Starting on beat 4 there mixes it up. Takeaway is, don't start all your phrases in the same spot. I don't think I have any other phrase so far. Maybe I do. Do I have any other phrases that start on beat 4? I don't think I do. This is the first phrase that we've heard so far that starts on a beat 4 in such a strong way. So that further emphasizes this phrase as sort of it's a climax. We start in a different place. We're in a much higher register than the rest of the solo. So it provides a nice arc, and then we're going to start to move down, as we do going on to this measure right in here, which we just talked about. What I want to talk about now, we're almost coming to the end here, so thanks for sticking with me, is I love this arpeggio going down like this. That's such a hip I mean, it's just 5, 3, 1, 7. I love that. I think I learned that from John Coltrane's Bessie's Blues, which goes like, how does that even go? It's not in that key, but that's the idea. It's that 5, 3, 1, flat 7. It's a very cool way to arpeggiate the chord, and it's nothing fancy, no skips or anything, just going 5, 3, 1, 7 on a dominant 7th chord. Going on, we're almost at the end. We have this D to B. Same kind of thing as before, just going down that third. Let me play this in context a little bit. So I'll take it from the top of this page, measure 37. So we have 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And then finally, we end the idea here. We have a lot of rests in there to let this thing clear out. And then, this B7 is signifying that we're about to go back to the top of the chorus. But what I have here is, which is actually the same thing as this, right? It's the 5, the 3, the 1, and the 7. With some syncopation, and I'm repeating a couple of notes, like I have the B there twice, but it's the same kind of thing. And then I just end on the B. So that's the breakdown, guys. I rushed through some parts and I dug in deep on some others. So hopefully you got something out of this. Thanks for sticking with me if you watched till the end, and hope you enjoyed. Again, this was the breakdown for my solo on Sprain over the chord progression for Chick Corea's Spain. Thanks for watching.